Okay, so we're going to very quickly run through some of the different formulas under the heading of profit. So our total revenue is going to be our price times our quantity. So price times quantity is going to tell us the total amount of money we have received from sales of goods or services. So total revenue is price times quantity. Our average revenue is our total revenue divided by quantity. So again, our total, this is all the money that we've received divided by all the goods that we have sold. It's going to give us the average of how much we got per good or per unit. So another name for this is price. So this is another name for the price of a good. So how do we know that? Well, if our formula for average revenue is total revenue divided by quantity, well, another way of writing total revenue is price times quantity. So if we were to write price times quantity divided by quantity and we cancel out our two Q's for quantity, we're just left with price. So that price, or that P that stands for price, is another way of saying our average revenue. So if you see average revenue, they're talking about the price. Marginal revenue then, so our marginal revenue is the change in our total revenue. So the change in the total revenue as a result of the sale of one extra unit of output. So it's asking you, how much money can we make from selling one additional unit? So these two graphs here then tell a bit of a story, and we have to understand what they're saying to us. So if we're told that our average revenue is fixed, okay, so our price is fixed, it's saying that our line is going to be horizontal, but it's also telling us that our average revenue is going to be equal to our marginal revenue. Why? Well, if we sell a good and we know that the price of it is fixed, well, we know that the marginal revenue of producing that extra good is also going to be fixed, because the revenue from it, whether it's €5 per pen that we sell, we know that whether it's the 6th pen or the 7th pen or the 8th pen, that extra marginal revenue is always going to be €5, so it doesn't change. And for that reason, if our average revenue is fixed, it means our average revenue will be equal to our marginal revenue. What's different then is if our average revenue is falling. So if our marginal revenue is less than our average revenue, it's going to look a little bit like this. So our marginal revenue curve is going to be inside our average revenue curve. So again, our average revenue is going to be greater than our marginal revenue. Okay. So how do we work out our profit? Well, our profit is going to be calculated from our total costs minus our total revenue minus our total costs is going to give us profit. And we have three things that we should do in order to maximize our profit. The first one is to make sure that our marginal costs are equal to our marginal revenue. The second thing, make sure that the marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue curve from below. So we can see here in the graph where we have a marginal cost curve and a marginal revenue curve, but these cut in two different spots. So to maximize profits, we have to make sure that the marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue curve from below. If we said this point here, we would lose out on all of this profit, because in all of this area, we can see the marginal revenue is far greater than the marginal cost. So this is all profit. That's the reason why it has to cut from below to gain all this extra profit. The last point on maximizing profit then is to make sure that our average revenue must be greater than or equal to the average costs in the long run. So in other words, we have to be able to cover all of our costs in the long run. In the short run, we can get by just covering variable costs, but in the long run, we have to be able to cover all costs. So our average revenue has to be at least equal to, if not be greater than, our average costs. So short run and long run. In the short run, marginal costs are equal to marginal revenue, and the marginal cost must cut marginal revenue from below. Our average revenue should be greater than our average variable costs. So again, we're not talking about covering fixed costs. We can actually be making a loss in the short run, but keep running. In the long run, our marginal revenue should be equal to our marginal costs here. Our marginal cost must cut the marginal revenue from below. But in the long run, so we have our difference here, our marginal revenue should be greater than or equal to our average cost.